It's just a dream come true, to be honest. I remember running around the backyard in the blue and white trying to kick goals and pretend to be players like Drew Petrie, and I'm hopefully going to be playing alongside him. So yeah, I just can't wipe the smile off my face.
He tries to lace it out, and some bravery there from the front coming from McDonald.
Oh, well done McDonald with courage.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, he gets up now too. That's a great effort from McDonald.
Luke McDonald, welcome to Shinboner Stories.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. I think the second episode, right?
Second play of North Melbourne.
Sorry, first one was obviously Huey.
Yeah.
So you had to start with Huey before he went to the Gold Coast. But yeah,
it's a hard act to follow.
I know. He's a very intelligent man, Huey, and yeah, he's been great for the footy club, but he's going to do great things up on the Gold Coast. So I'm excited for him.
You are as much of a North Melbourne person as they come. Your dad, Donald, famously played 150 odd games for North. What was it like growing up in a North Melbourne household?
Yeah, North Melbourne's just been pretty much my entire life. So dad played 155 games. As soon as I can remember, it was all about North Melbourne, and just cheering on. And I mean, I was born in '95, so pretty lucky to, not that I can remember too much, but it was obviously a golden era at the footy club. And do you want to do? Can you hear that? Like, keep going. Sorry, we just got an ambulance, flying plane,
helicopter.
Yeah,
they want in on the action.
They want in. Could be a sponsor. Pretty much my whole entire life was just North Melbourne. Dad was working at Box Hill and Hawthorn in the early 2000s. Then 2004, he came and started as assistant coach here and done a few different roles. But yeah, I just remember growing up, just always being around the footy club, being in the footy rooms. I remember when Dad first went to North, it was like, I was really nervous about meeting all the players, obviously because I was a massive fan. And one day the doorbell went, and Mum and Dad are like, "Oh, it's for you, Luke." And like, when's it ever for a 9-year-old? But anyway, I went to the door and Glenn Archer was there, and he gave me a footy jumper and took me out for breakfast with Brady Rawlings and Adam Simpson. And like, then they took me to training, and it was just honestly like, I don't even think I said a word, and usually you can't keep me quiet. Like, I was just starstruck, and to think now that I've played for a fair amount of time and been captain of the footy club, it's amazing looking back.
You nominated North through father-son ahead of the 2013 draft. You were taken with pick 8. At the time, it was the highest ever father-son selection in the draft.
Yeah.
What was that moment like? I think you always knew you were coming to North, but to actually be selected.
Yeah, well, it was amazing. So North sort of committed to me pretty early on, so I sort of knew that I was going to go to North, and sort of had to play as if like I didn't know if they were going to take me and all that. But it was just so good being able to. I mean, I was able to train at the club and play with Werribee, who was the VFL affiliate side, and it's just awesome being around and actually being in the system. And I think that really helped me with my first year, being able to know how we wanted to play. Already felt really comfortable with all the guys. Still starstruck, running around with Boomer and Wellesley, and we got Del Sano that year. And Mick Fredo, I better say Mick is one of my all-time favourites. But I mean, it was awesome. But the best thing I think was like going from a fan to a player. Like it's just crazy going to the side that you just love so much.
North are through.
And the frustration now spilling over.
North Melbourne are going to be into the preliminary final. What a match!
You burst onto the scene, I should say. 2014 was your first year. You stepped into a very successful North Melbourne team. We made finals that year, and the famous victory that everyone still thinks about is the elimination final win over Essendon. You're the last player on our list that played in that game.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that moment.
Oh, well, like that whole year was just crazy because I did a lot of my junior and throughout 18s as a midfielder, but coming into that side, the only way I was ever going to play was like in a back pocket, and I was just happy to play it wherever, to be fair. And then I was so lucky to come into a side with like Scott Thompson, Robbie Tarrant and Mick Fredo, who just really guided me. And yeah, that year was just so good. Like just firstly rolling into that first final, MCG, I think there would have been 90,000 there.
Yeah, it
and
was crazy.
yeah, probably the highlight of my career, really, if I look back. But there's one memory, like everyone talks about Sammy Wrights, like Mark and Drew Petrie's, Frank the Tank. But the one moment I can never forget is like obviously we stormed back,
Yeah.
we were down, and Paddy Ryder kicked a goal from like 50, like snapped it, and I just remember like the ground, like the ground was shaking, and I was just like an 18-year-old kid. I was just looking around like this is like this is as good as it gets. And then yeah, obviously we come back and win, and Benny Brown kicks a couple, and Drewy, yeah, does what he did, and yeah, after the game, like it was just it was so good, and that's what I try and rub onto the young guys, that like when we turn and we are like, and I really feel like it's coming, like you don't know like how good it is. Like it's been a tough few years at the club, but I just remember the supporters in the crowd that day. Like we packed the MCG, and like I remember after the game you do like a lap and you're like high fiving everyone, but like it was like the whole first level was just North Melbourne people, just
Incredible.
so passionate, and yeah, you never forget that.
That year was also a great year for you personally. You were nominated for the Rising Star. You came third. Marcus Bontempelli and Lewis Taylor, the first and second. What's it like
Good
being
research,
in
you.
that?
No one said this stuff for a while.
I said this to you as well. This lives rent free in my head. You guys, I didn't do much research. I just know it.
Yeah, awesome.
But what was that like for you to be in that sort of company and to be recognised amongst the best first year players?
Yeah, it was cool, but I mean the biggest thing that I was like proudest of was like I was playing finals, and I don't think any of those other guys were at that stage. And I remember going to the Rising Star day, and like I knew I was going to finish up there, but I was like already thinking about playing Essendon that weekend. Like I was obviously proud that I was a Rising Star. Like I really wanted to get a nominee. Like that's just what I wanted to get. And then the rest, like I was just happy playing and playing finals, and yeah, but like it's awesome. I look back at that draft class, and like there's been some really, really good players. Like obviously everyone talks about the Bont, but Paddy Cripps, Josh Kelly, Zach Merritt, Sicily, Jack Billings. So there's been some really good players. Big Benny Brown. So yeah, it's an awesome draft class, and yeah, it was nice to finish third. I think guy who was one ahead of me has ended up having not a bad career, Big Bont, but
yeah, but he doesn't play at North, so
he doesn't
really,
play at
how
North. Yeah,
you know?
exactly right. But yeah, it's it was a great first year.
Setting it up, McDonald to half forward, Franklin left it behind. McDonald. The toe, strange move.
That's really cool.
McDonald to Nahas. McDonald, slippery ball, up against the boundary. McDonald to Grant.
Much of the same in 15 and to a degree in 16. Finals both of those years.
Yeah.
Elimination final against Richmond. Some say that was better than 2014, but given the way that 2014 unfolded.
And against Essendon.
Yeah, and against Essendon. 15 almost gets overshadowed, but that was just as big a game.
Yeah.
How was that?
Well, I was actually first emergency for that. So I was sitting in the stands, just like, I'll just never forget sitting in the stands that day, and I'm just like, I never want to be in this position again where I'm not playing, because like the joy in the rooms after that game, like obviously I was really happy for the boys, but I was just like, it was just next level. Like, yeah, I think there was more than 90,000 that day, and it was just so good. The season is one thing, but finals is just like, it's another season altogether. And like that's why I'm just so driven to get us back there, because it's just, like when you get that taste, it's like, it's all you want. But yeah, that day was just, you probably couldn't have got a better day too. The conditions were unbelievable.
It was perfect.
And yeah, like all the old boys fired up, and
Jared Waite masterclass.
Yeah, Waite.
Come across.
I know. It was
Robert
funny.
Nahas.
We had Jared Waite. We had him in we had two names. Like there was Jared Waite and there was Gary Waite. So Jared Waite was sometimes a little bit lazy but very talented. But Gary Waite was like an elite pressure player, and like we never knew what Waitey we were going to get, but we got Gary that day, and he was unbelievable. But it's funny, people ask me like who was like the best player you ever played with, and I honestly reckon the most talented guy I ever played with was Jared Waite. Like he just like
what he could do,
like he jumped like 5 deep and clunked it. He was just a freak.
The 2016 season started very strong, but the wheels did fall off pretty quickly in the second half, and at the end of the season we bid farewell to 4 legends of the club, and then a 5th with Daniel Wells leaving shortly after. How do you think that changed things for North?
Oh, look, it was a pretty emotional time, just because all those guys are like stalwarts of the club, guys you looked up to, and like, yeah, you just, yeah, it was definitely tough, and to be, yeah, like we haven't really gone very well since, to be honest, but yeah, like just because they were not only were they great leaders, but they were great people around and just great North people that just taught us so much, and still in contact with all those guys today. And to be fair, when I first started my career, I was like, I thought I was going to be number 21 forever, but when Spud asked me to be 11, like I couldn't say no to him. Like that's how much I looked up to him. But yeah, I think every North person knows that. Like, yeah, that was a big moment for the footy club, losing so much talent. And yeah, we're probably just starting to get that stability back from then. Yeah.
So Spud asked you to take the number 11 from him, which he received from Glenn Archer.
Yeah.
Was it much long after the 2016 season?
Well, not many people know this, but after my first year, like Spud had a pretty tough year that year. He was in the twos, and I think he might have been 30, and he thought like he was done. So he was like saying at the end of the year, like, I want you to take 11, and I was just like, I'm not answering that because you're not done. You know what I mean? Like I was like, you got more, because I just loved him so much. One of the best teammates I've ever had. And sure enough, like they gave him another year, and the next 2 years he was just like so rock solid.
Yeah.
And then after that year, like I'd played 50 games in 21, but like being a North person, like I know how much 11 means to the footy club. Like Glenn Archer's just Shinboner of the century, and Spud's he's got to be up there with one of the best Shinboners of all time. So yeah, it was an easy one. It was pretty cool though. Like, and every time before I run out, like I hold that jumper and I'm just looking at the 11 and I know like the weight it carries. So all I ever do is just try to do it proud.
You have definitely done us proud. In particular, you kind of had a really strong moment in darkness in 2020. It was the weirdest season I think anyone's ever been through with COVID, but you were able to make the most of it. You won your first ever Syd Barker at the end of that year. What do you think about that situation helped your career personally?
Well, the year before I broke my ankle, and yeah, I didn't have much of a preseason, but I knew, like it was Reece Shaw's first full year, and like he was someone who was like an unbelievable mentor for me. Just like filled me with so much confidence because he was a backs coach before he took over as head coach, and I think that was the year I really, really believed like in myself as a player. And the hub was an interesting situation because we got there and like we got told we were going to be there for 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, they're like, you're going to be here for the rest of the season. And a lot of people were just like, couldn't like get their head around it.
Yeah.
Whereas like I sort of was looked at it as in a different light. I was like, you know what, like could be in Melbourne stuck, not playing footy. Like I'm in Queensland. The weather's unbelievable. I'm up here playing the game I love with all my mates. One of the things that happened that year was like Ricky Ponting like did this Zoom with us, and he was telling us about when he used to go to like Bangladesh and India, and he'd go on these like long tours, and like not the conditions weren't always perfect, but like it's a lot of the things is how you approach it. Like he's like, if I approach it being like, oh no, like, you know, negatively, like it's not going to help and you're not going to have a good time. Whereas if you might as well, like how you approach things, like it really helps with the outcome. So I just had a really positive mindset, just embraced it. It was a tough time for the club, but I really wanted to stand up, and it was a good year. Yeah, sure, it was a massive reason behind that, massive mentor for me.
You've had quite a long list of coaches in your time at North. You mentioned Reece Shaw, Brad Scott, David Noble, Patch Adams for a little while.
Croc coaches for a bit too.
I was say Croc, and then Brett Ratton, but obviously Clarko. How have they all impacted you and your career?
Yeah, well, every coach is different, and everyone's got different strengths. It'd be hard to rattle them all off. But like obviously, I had Scotty for such a long period of time at the start, and he was great coach, really good tactically. And then I suppose the next like 5 or 6 years, it's just been hard to get some really rock solid stability. And I think no doubt like we've seen that on the field, just not being able to get stability with players, and our performances haven't been to the level that we expect. But the thing is, like, we've now got some really, really strong stability off the field at the club, with Clarko, Toddy Viney, Jen Watt, Sonia, Cam Matthews. All of our assistant coaches stayed on. All of our fitness and strength conditioning, like there hasn't been any changes. So that's why I'm just so bullish about this year. Like, and I know people are probably sick of hearing that, but because they just want to see it, which is so fair enough. But yeah, I'm really excited about what we can do this year, just because we've got that stability that we haven't had pretty much since those 4 guys that we spoke about earlier left.
You're also at the forefront of that. You and Jai Simpkin were voted in by the players as co-captains at the end of 2022 when Jack Zabel stepped down. What was that moment like for you?
It was obviously a massive honor. I think the biggest thing is just like, I feel like with those roles, like obviously you got to have an aspiration to be a leader, but all that matters is what your teammates and the coaches think of you. So for them to vote you into that position, like, yeah, it just fills you with so much confidence, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of noise like outside of footy clubs, like with the media and everything, but and even like family, friends, everything, but at a footy club, like, you just got to stay so tight, because like what your teammates and your coaches think of you, like that's the be all and end all. So yeah, I've always just been like, all I've ever wanted was my teammates to respect me, and my coaches to really respect me and trust me, and yeah, for them to elect me as captain, yeah, it's been awesome. And yeah, when I first rolled in the door, like, yeah, I feel like I've matured a lot to the little rat bag I was at the start. So it's pretty cool with like old guys coming up to me from, who I played with early in my career, and they're just like, well done, mate. Like, it's so good to see like how far you've come. So yeah, it's a massive honour. Something, yeah, you look back more when you finish your career, but to have your teammates and coaches have you in this role, it's pretty cool.
So Turner can take 30 off the clock here as well as kick the goal. Gives the handball off to the left foot, and McDonald lines him up. And the Kangaroos are making it at half.
With the captaincy has come criticism. We spoke just before we jumped on air that you have been a whipping boy for majority of your career. And I almost feel like that's intensified over the last 2 seasons as you stepped into that captaincy role. How does that impact you?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt that's come with being a leader. And look, I'd love everyone to love me, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like, we haven't been a very successful footy club for a number of years. I'm the captain of the footy club. I'd much rather it be me than anyone else. To be fair, I don't really read too much into all that stuff. It's more like your family and your partner and that sort of see that stuff, and it probably affects them. But I understand it's a really, really passionate game, and I know that like North fans would be very frustrated. And yeah, I'm the one that's been here the whole time. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'd love everyone to love me, but it's all part of the game. And it also, like, at nights like the best and fairest, like, so many people come up to me and say like how they love how I go about it, and as I said before, like, my teammates and my coaches respect me, and yeah, I mean, and your family respect you. And to be fair, like, that's always gonna be number one for me. And as I said, I'd rather it be me than any of the young boys who sort of cop it.
What does North Melbourne mean to you?
Oh well, to be fair, it's all I've ever known. So yeah, some people get into me a bit about smiling and that, but like, I just love this footy club, and like, there's no way, like, I'm so like disappointed with how we've gone over the last few years. Like, the end of the day, like, my number one strength as football is my competitiveness, and I feel like that's why I got the number 11. So I'm certainly really like disappointed and not satisfied with how we've been going, but I just I'm just so proud to be a North Melbourne person, and I'm so excited to turn this ship. And I know with the guys we've got now, like, that it's going to happen. But yeah, being a North Melbourne person, it's all I've ever known. Wearing the 11, being captain, like, it's, if you had told me this stuff when I was like 10, I would have just like probably cried. You know what I mean? Because it's just like all I ever wanted to do was play for North. But yeah, it's been cool to be in this position as well. But I want us to be a good footy side, because at the end of the day, all that matters is winning and playing good footy, and that's what I'm really, really striving for.
There'll be thousands, hopefully, people watching this at home. What do you have to say to them about where the club is heading in 2025?
Oh, I feel like people are going to be sick of me saying positive things about the club. They just want to see it, and I understand that. But we just have so many passionate North Melbourne fans that have been so loyal throughout the journey, and I completely understand like the frustration. Like, players have been frustrated too, because no one's happy with where we've been. But yeah, I just want to thank him for just sticking by us. Like, when we go to games, like, the North fans are always louder. We may not have the numbers, but just the passion and the energy that you guys provide, it's so good. And I know that when we start winning, which is going to be this year, more and more people are going to come back on like we had in those years, my early years when we were going really well and there were big numbers at the footy. But yeah, I just want to say thank you and get excited for the journey ahead.
This has been such an honour and a delight. And I know, as someone who's supported North my whole life, to have someone in the same position being at the centre of the rebuild and the charge back up the ladder towards our 5th premiership, I think we're in very, very good hands. So thanks for your time.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me. And it's just great to see your passion for the club. And yeah, there's nothing better than going for North, especially in the years to come.
Thanks, Luke.
No worries.